You're listening to the Drummer Daily Podcast, the only daily podcast dedicated just to drummers. Go to my website at danielhadaway.com. Hey there, welcome back for another episode of Drummer Daily. As I mentioned yesterday, we are in the middle of a series on worship drumming, and today is the second of 3 parts. And today I want to talk to you about, so yesterday we talked about sensitivity, and these don't have to go in order, so if you're listening to these out of order, don't worry about it, totally cool. But yesterday we talked about sensitivity, and how hearing how your drums sound in the room can be a big deal for worship drumming, and then also being aware of where people are at and also following the lead of the leader that you're playing with, how that's important. So sensitivity was yesterday. Today, I want to talk to you about dynamics. And like I mentioned yesterday, this kind of feeds off of sensitivity because your dynamics, they need to exist, but that means soft, loud, intense, and all kinds of things in between that I'll get to. But they definitely the dynamic part of everything plays off of how sensitive you are to what's going on in the room, and the worship leader, the people, the goal of maybe like what the message might be if you're kind of theming your songs off of what the preacher might be preaching about, the pastor. That might be something that you want to consider. Anyway, lots goes into that. But the cool thing about dynamics is I want to touch on this unique part of it. There's a lot that goes into dynamics. But what I want to talk about today is dynamics are not just about volume. They're about intensity. And let me kind of explain to you what I mean. There are so many times when, in my experience on Sundays at church, where what we're trying to go for is a laid-back volume. So we actually want like a soft pattern or a soft feel to what's coming out of what we're playing. So there won't be a lot of like heavy guitar riffs or loud screaming, or not screaming, but loud singing. If I was singing, it'd sound like screaming. But anyway, a loud stuff happening. It's going to be more reserved in the tonal shape of what's coming out of our instruments as a band. But even though we're keeping everything quiet, we still want there to be an intensity behind it. And so what I'm thinking about is, think about this. This might be the best way of explaining it. Think about your typical, like in your mind, like what a train sounds like, the chugga 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 chugga, that sound, that you always hear on TV or see, or maybe you see in real life. That'd be cool if you're like a train conductor or whatever. But think about a train that you hear way down the tracks, but you can still hear that chugga 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 sound. Well, when you're hearing it way down the track, it's chugging along at the same speed, and it's very intense. It's just very quiet. And then as it gets closer to you, it gets louder and louder and louder and louder. But the intensity never changes. If you think about it, the intensity, the energy underneath what's being played is the same when it's really quiet because it's far away, or when it's really close and in front of you. And so a big thing that we work on as a band, and a big thing that I focus on as a drummer, is trying to maintain intensity when it's needed, because sometimes you don't want that. It's playing with intensity, but playing quietly. And there's a few practical things I do to do that. One is, and these are just all things that work for me, they may not work for you, but one thing I do is I like to choke up on my sticks a little bit. So I hold them a little more up towards the middle of the stick as opposed to down towards the end. That gives me the balance and the speed to really get close to the drums, but play quickly without hitting them hard. The second thing is I might kind of hunch over the drums a little bit more, bend down over the snare drum to kind of really get close to everything and really be able to move fast but not loud. Things like that, or I might just really, really amp up like how tight I'm holding the sticks. That helps me sometimes too. And the opposite side of that, of course, is also that just because something is loud doesn't mean it's intense, or something dynamically is louder doesn't mean it's intense. There might be times when you really want to lay back and and kind of let the groove kind of land in a good solid place, and put some weight behind what you're playing, but you're not playing intensely. You're actually playing quite relaxed. And so we do that sometimes too, when, there can be songs that can get almost too intense, and it can be distracting in church sometimes, if you're playing all these big, I call them like bangers, like big, loud, heavy songs that are like epic, you're playing like 10 Hillsong songs in a row, and they're all just epic, epic songs. That can kind of get tiring. Now the songs are still great, but for your situation, it might not work to play all those that way. So what we've learned to do is find ways to still play those amazing songs and those awesome melodies, but maybe for some of those songs, if we're playing a lot that are like that, dial back the intensity even in the up moments so that it feels more easygoing. It's not so aggressive. It's not so you're not dictating and pushing so hard. You're kind of easing into everything. So that's just the other part of it. So there's two parts of dynamics. There's playing softly but with intensity, and there's playing loudly but with some relaxation and some chill. Give it some chill, you know what I mean? So anyway, those are two ideas for how to do that. I hope that's helpful, the dynamic part of everything. And then tomorrow we'll wrap up with one more key aspect of worship drumming that I think is important. So until then, I'll talk to you later. Bye.